Authors Unplugged. I'm excited. We've got a full house again. I've got Alexa Aston, Matilda Madison, and Sophia Nye with us this week. Ladies, thanks for taking the time to join us. I really appreciate it.
Yeah,
Thanks for
absolutely.
having us.
So we're just going to go in random order this week because we've got so many cool releases, and we're going to start with Alexa's book, which is book 4 in the Strongs of Shadowcrest book, and it's The Captain and the Duchess. And this series, oh my goodness, this series! Can you tell us about this book, Alexa?
I will tell you that this book was not supposed to be a book. Okay. It's a book. I was having lunch with Catherine Lebec, who is our publisher and my mentor here at Dragonblade. And she was asking, what's the next thing you want to do? And I said, well, you know what? I think I'm ready to do another family series. I haven't done one since the St. Clairs. And I've been kind of toying with a guy who's a duke, and he's going to have all these sisters, maybe 4. Let's have 5 in the series. And she's like, okay, yes, let's go for it. And that's what I signed for. And then I wrote book 1, and that was James and Sophie's story, The Duke's Unexpected Love. And in it, James has been away for many, many years, comes home, and he meets his young stepmother, who has raised 4 girls of her own, plus her 2 nieces. And Dinah is just the loveliest lady, and she's not that much older than James, and they become friends. And James brings home with him his best friend from his seafaring days, who is Drake. And Drake's just hot, okay? And from the moment he and Dinah meet, sparks started flying. And I had them meet twice in the book. And when I finished writing that first book, I was kind of like, And that became my book, The Captain and the Duchess. So I called Catherine and I said, not going to be 5 books. And she's like, oh no, what? What's happening? I said, well, there's going to be another one. Drake and Dinah are going to have a story. Okay, that's fine. She's fine. And then I wound up telling this 2 stories of the nieces. So the Strongs of Shadowcrest actually have books.
Yeah, I just saw those, the duet. It's like, oh.
Yeah, well, that's the next one. Yes. So anyway, their story is Drake went to sea at a very young age, and he mentored James. He was kind of like an older brother to him. And then when James becomes the Duke, Drake inherits his ship. And that's all this kid has ever wanted. He's a self-made man. He's self-taught, never went to school, but, he loves to read history and poetry and all that kind of stuff. And he just has a thing for Dinah. And let's face it, she's in her mid-30s. She married an ancient duke, second wife, and she gave him 4 daughters, boom, 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 in a row. And basically, he thought she was worthless. So this girl has not known love. I mean, she's had happiness through her daughters and her nieces, but she has never had that self-satisfaction that comes from romance. And she meets Drake, and like I said, it is just... they are attracted, but, they know it's an impossible situation. Polite society is not going to condone a, widowed duchess with some hot sea captain. But you know what? The heart wants what the heart wants. And so they defy everything. And of course, they have love and support of all of their strong relatives, and they get their HEA. So.
It sounds like the characters want what the characters want too, whether it's what the author wants or not.
Oh my gosh, my characters are so misbehaving. I taught for 30 years, and let me tell you, I was a planner. I had students tell me, oh my gosh, I've never had such an organized teacher in my life. I mean, I knew everything that was going to happen. And even when they threw me curveballs, I just threw them right back. But I'm a pantser as a writer. I mean, I used to just, come up with maybe 3 or 4, 5, 6, plot points. Let's do this, this, and this. And nowadays, it's just, I spend a lot of time creating my characters. And so I could tell you everything about Drake and Dinah. But when I started their story, I thought, what's going to happen? I mean, obviously, he's going to have to give up the sea, or will he? And will she be able to give up her place in polite society? And other than that, I just run with stuff nowadays because the characters, if I drive them down I-35, they want to get off on state highways and little country roads and do their own thing. And eventually, they wind up where I wanted them at that HEA. But I feel like nowadays I'm just the typist. I run the movie in my head. I listen to their dialogue. I transcribe, whatever they dictate to me. And it's like, okay, done. You got your story told.
And when you fight it, it feels like it's so much harder. Like I find the times when I get really stuck is when I'm trying to force them to do something that either is not part of their character or is just not where the story needs to go.
Exactly. They want to do what they want to do. And I finally have decided to let them run with it. And I think I'm a happier writer because of it. Sometimes I'm a little more frustrated at writing. But like I said, that's when the magic of writing up happens. Like I said, I wasn't supposed to tell Drake and Dinah's story. They were supposed to be just little minor secondary characters, and, James and Sophie were on the main stage. And the same thing with the nieces. It's like, well, they were brought up in the house with the other 4 daughters. Why can't we have our own story? And so they do in next month's duet. I do it. It's called Courtship at Shadowcrest. And so
it looks charming. We just got the pre-order for that. I think I got that, a week or 2 ago. It looks charming. So awesome.
That's what's up with me. And it's out today. So get it now while it's 99 cents.
Well, it sounds fantastic. I'm looking forward to that one and more of the.
Can you hear that noise?
We can, yes.
Okay. I'm going to let y'all start talking. I need to go outside. I'm getting new double ovens in, and they've been here an hour and a half, and I didn't know what was going to be happening. So y'all keep talking, and I'll join you in a minute.
It sounds like the Borg. So double ovens are way better than what I was picturing, because it was like some Star Trek mashup in my head.
Okay, I'll be back.
I'm going to go ahead and mute Alexa real quick, so we have the Borg coming, and we're gonna trust that she comes back and she doesn't get assimilated. So, so the next book that came out this week is Sophia's. Well, it's actually not, because we're just going in random order. Sophia's book comes out at the end of the week, and it is Into the Ashes, and it's book 3 in the Warriors of. You have to say is it Fianna?
Fianna.
Yeah, Fianna. Okay, because I think I ask you every time and I mess it up every single time.
No, it's okay. I'm not 1,000% sure I'm saying it right. I only have studied a small amount of Gaelic, so it's.
Well, we're going to trust you on account of it's your book. So, can you tell us a little bit about this one?
Yeah, absolutely. So we left off in book 2 with the gang all heading to rescue this captive princess that was talked about a lot in the second book, but we haven't met her. But we get to meet her because book 3 is her story, and then one of the Dyrvid, and they have just the funnest romance. I wrote this book in 3 weeks. It's like the fastest I ever wrote a book. It was so much fun.
Wow.
So they end up in Viking-occupied Dublin because Cara is supposed to marry the Viking King Sihtric in order to form an alliance on behalf of King Brian. And they get off to a very bad start. And she almost botches the whole thing because she's like an ice princess, right? She has a lot of trouble accessing her emotions and connecting with people for, backstory reasons. But it's becoming a problem because Sihtric is, so I don't know if you've seen The Last Kingdom, but I had in my mind, like young Ragnar, where he's just so boisterous and happy and like full of life. And so that's very much the character I had in my mind. And that doesn't mesh very well with her kind of personality. Yeah. So enter Dyrvid, whose mission is to get her betrothed to this Norse king. And he's like, we're going to fix this. I'm going to teach you how to woo this guy so he will actually marry you. You can see where that might not go the way that they planned. But it's adorable and it's so much fun. And I love all of the characters. And I'm just really excited about it. So, yeah.
Oh, cool. Cool. Is this the last book in the series?
I don't plan for it to be the last book, but I haven't officially gotten the go ahead on any of the rest. So I'm
we'll cross all the crossballs.
Hoping, yes. So
we'll cross all the crossballs. Oh, awesome. Well, it sounds like so much fun. I did not even know that there was a Viking occupied Dublin. So it's like it's really fun, really fun stuff. And it's filled.
I'm sorry, this is a total tangent, but it is
No, go. I like tangents enough.
it's filled with actual historical details of Dublin in the year 1000 because we happen to have an archaeological report that dug to that depth. And so we know the layout of the city during that year. So like there's a scene where they walk into Dublin when they first get there, and everything I describe in that scene is straight out of an archaeological report.
Oh,
And
that's so cool.
It was so cool. Yes. That doesn't happen you guys know, that doesn't happen very often with medieval history. So I was thrilled.
Oh, that's so cool. That's so cool. And I was really bad at history, not because nobody made it stories for me. If they'd made it stories for me, I would have been excited by it. But it was just a lot of, I have to memorize these things, so I did, and there was no context. So when I get to read a historical romance or historical fiction or anything, and there are real things in, and you get to kind of like, then it's a story and it's contextualized, and it's just so much easier to get excited about it. So very, very cool. Awesome. Well, there's lots to look forward to there. So Matilda's book is the debut series with Dragonblade, which is very exciting. And it's exciting for us too. It makes a deal. And it is book 1 in the Gambling Peers. I like the series title of this one. I thought Gambling Peers was very cool. So,
thank you.
Can you tell us about the book?
Yeah, absolutely. It's actually, I decided it was based off of a true story. I had read an article about a Russian mobster who was doing, he was gambling, and he gambled his wife away to this guy, and the guy won. And then the wife found out, and she was furious, obviously.
Well, yeah.
And she was like, I'm divorcing you, and now I'm going to date this guy. And they got married. And I read that. I was like, oh, my God, that's insane.
He won a real wife.
Yeah, that was stunning. So that's the beginning of A Duke Makes a Deal. Clara thinks that she's new money. It's Regency. It's 1822. So she's new money. She's at her first society ball, and there's Lord Dilworth, and he's not a great guy, and he's a gambler, and he gambles his engagement ring to her away, and then he's like, oh well, what about her? And gambles her to the Duke, and Duke is like furious about it. He's like, you can't treat people like that. But my Duke is divorced. Silas, my heroes in the series work with, or have a lot of they work on their mental health, because men have mental health issues like all of us, and just in my regular life, like, it's difficult for them to talk about. And so, inspired by real life events, I was wanting to write a book about how men can talk about their feelings and work through their anxieties and stuff like that. And Silas kind of uses Clara because she teaches him how to get through a panic attack. I've had tons of panic attacks in my life, and really it's just my own way of getting through one, but she teaches him how to get through it, and he's like, well, I'll help you in society. They do a marriage of convenience because he can never love again. He's divorced again. He comes from a problematic relationship with his ex-wife, and so he's sworn off love, and that always works for heroes when they swear off love. So
because they always find them right away.
Oh yeah. So yeah, that's the book, and then book 2 follows his friend the Baron, and then their other friend the Earl. I've got 3 titled gentlemen, so I'm very excited. I'm over the moon about being with Dragonblade. So, and my release was yesterday. I was so stoked.
Very cool, very cool. And I love a hero who's got a good arc. You know, when they have a long arc and they have to do a bunch of growth to get to the point where they can.
Yeah, and he does. He has to work through, and she's a little different from my usual heroines, only in that she's just so confident in herself from the very beginning. Even though she's new money and she doesn't really understand anything, she understands who she is, and she falls first, but Silas falls harder, and they work well together. So.
Oh, cool. Oh, very cool. And it's 3 friends, so it's kind of found family.
Yes, very much found family.
Awesome. Well, we'll look forward to all the rest of those too. So fantastic. So rather than talk about writing or talk any more about characters who talk to you at the risk of sounding crazier than we generally do, one of the interesting things I think, aside from the historical research part, which I love, about talking to authors is that everybody seems to have had like multiple lives before they came to writing, or they write while they have multiple lives going on. And so I thought maybe we could talk a little bit about like what was your first job or your favorite job or your worst job or anything. I know when Alexa says that she was a teacher and she's very organized, that is so true because I get everything I need from her like 2 weeks before I need it. It's fantastic. Never have to chase her for anything. So I just thought it might be interesting if we could hear a little bit about about your background and about who you were before you became a writer.
So my first job was probably the worst. I was 15 years old and I worked at a submarine sandwich shop. And I wasn't driving yet because I was, 15 years old. And so I would walk to work and then my dad would pick me up. But it was like when I used to go to the discos in college and you'd get in the car and your hair smelled like smoke and your clothes smelled like smoke. I smelled like sandwiches. I smelled like pastrami. I smelled like bread. I mean, the whole sandwich thing, even black olives. I mean, my fingers, it didn't matter how much I scrubbed myself. I mean, I'd get in the shower every day when I got home from work and I still just smelled like a sub.
Oh, goodness. But it was just the smell. It wasn't dealing with the people. It was just not wanting to smell like a sandwich that made it terrible.
I won't even go into customer service. I'm glad that was my only my venture into the food industry. My daughter wound up being a server and a hostess in high school for 2.5 years. And she was the same way. When she finished, she was like, no more food industry. We both went into teaching and we were both very happy at that job.
It was interesting because I just saw something, a human resource person had posted a video and they said, when you're hiring people, look for people who are in the food service industry because it's such a collaborative way of working, and that people who have to turn over 7 tables at the same time and like that you learn to work together and you learn to see what needs to be done and step in and do it.
Yeah, that's true. And you learn to multitask too. I mean, this was just a very small operation, so I did everything from, sweep up at the end, clean the slicing machine, ring people up, that kind of thing. But it got to where for probably 2 years after I quit that job, I did not eat a submarine sandwich. It's just like, no, even as much as I love bread, they say that man cannot live by bread alone. Well, this woman could. Give me bread, any form, anytime. But I couldn't eat a sub. But I got over it.
I'm glad that part came back. Sophia, what about you?
Oh my goodness. I've had probably 10 different jobs because I'm an enthusiastic collector of experiences. So I
knew it. That's the writer thing.
I like to try everything at least once just to see what it's like. Mm-hmm. And so various parts of my life led me to various jobs. My least favorite job, and so I kind of enjoyed all of them to some extent, because I learned something valuable either about myself or about what I was working. But I think my least job I got, which was I was working as an administrative assistant and receptionist at a law firm, and it was kind of like babysitting adults a little bit, and I didn't love it. And I also
I don't imagine people having great days then either. So
yeah, and it was, I don't know, it didn't feel very purposeful to me. Like I didn't feel like I was doing anything meaningful or worthwhile with my time, and so that led me to go to graduate school, where I actually studied medieval history and archaeology. So some of my favorite jobs were the ones I had then, which was I worked at the National Archives of St. Louis, which was really fun. So I got to work with historic documents and help veterans get copies of records and help researchers, like genealogy researchers, find the documents that they needed in the archives and things like that. That was really fun. And I also worked at
treasure hunting.
Yeah, it was fun. I worked at the Natural History Museum in St. Louis, and I put together like a guide for interns to identify Native American projectile points, which is really because I had a background in Native American archaeology from my field
That's so
school,
neat.
so like really random stuff. I've worked in a bar. I just tried everything. I worked at a library. Um, but yeah, I think that my favorite job I had, though, I'll do that one and then I'll be done. My favorite job was during grad school. It was an internship, or not an assistantship, to help cover tuition, and it was at the Center for International Studies, which I totally didn't even think of as a place that existed until I got my job there. But looking at the resumes of the people that had gone through that center just blew my mind. Like, they had set up refugee camps after like the disasters in Haiti, and they had been, installing wells in the Andes Mountains. And I'm just like, what am I even doing with my life?
Purposeful work.
Yeah, it was a really cool, and I got to meet some of those people. The last project I did there, the shooting in St. Louis, we lived there when all the riots happened, and I got to drive around the kid's father to go collect artwork that had been made, so that we could put together a display that sort of discussed what was going on in kind of a social collaborative way. And he was just it was such a cool experience. And yeah, I think that was my favorite job just because I felt like it was really meaningful. So.
Oh, wow. Very cool. Both the good ones and the bad ones. Awesome.
Yeah.
Matilda, what about you?
Favorite. I've had a lot of jobs as well. I've worked. I've waited tables. I've worked in retirement homes and stuff like that. That was really rewarding because I have a big love for like geriatric healthcare. I have 3 sisters and they're all nurses, and we come from nurses and teachers. So I liked doing that, but I think my favorite job was lifeguarding as a teenager because you just got to tan all day, and I got to save 2 people. I think I lifeguard for 6 years, and I saved 2 people. One person, it was a girl. She had a stroke in the pool, not a stroke, like a stroke.
Aneurysm.
Seizure. She had a seizure. And she had a seizure, and she was face down. I wasn't even working that day. I had come in to get my schedule, and I walked in, and she had to be like 12 or something, and she was face down. And I jumped in with my clothes, and I pulled her up. But we would do practices every morning, so it was like flipping one of my friends over. And then there was another girl at one
That's like real superhero stuff.
Just so cool. Lifeguard. But I think that was my favorite because I got to hang out with my friends, and everybody thought lifeguards were cool. So
because lifeguards are cool.
They are objectively cool. Yeah.
But that's probably my favorite of all of them, besides writing. So.
Have you guys found that you can use any of your do you use autobiographical kind of things in your writing, either things that you experience yourself or things that you've seen other people go through? Is there something you draw on when you're building characters or settings?
I steal things from my husband's an iron worker, and I steal his dramas from work.
Who would know that iron workers were dramatic?
It's so much interesting, like these, because he meets people from like all walks, and iron workers are wonderful. I love iron workers, but what a bunch of guys! Like, what a bunch of different guys. And so I'll steal little tidbits from them. So.
When you say iron workers, are you talking like commercial iron workers with welding and all that?
He's a union iron worker. We're in the New York, New Jersey area, so he's like walking beams and stuff like that. But yeah, he's been doing it for a very long time, and I'm super proud of him. And I'm terrified of heights, so we're just complete opposites in every regard. But it's good.
Who knew that there was drama there?
There's so much, and it's so interesting.
Alexa, you were going to say something.
Now, I don't take anything from real life. Nobody's going to be able to sue me because everything is just, it's original. Because I mean, I mentioned on these talks before, I always, before I start with any plot or anything, I start with character. And so I imagine these characters, and they don't look like anyone I've ever met. I know some people clip a picture of someone from a magazine or something and stick it by their computer. No, I mean, my people are brand, Alexa created. And I don't know. I mean, I give them personalities and I infuse backstories. And, that's when my imagination just runs wild. And so I don't know. Real life isn't as interesting to me as what's going on in my head.
Do you get both characters at the same time, or do you get one stronger and then figure out who they need to be with?
It really depends. Sometimes I'll think of something, that backstory, and when you're trying to do the opposite and the yin and yang thing, it's like, oh, because he has panic attacks, she needs to be this do-gooder who, you can kind of balance, things off. And sometimes I just start just with the hero, just with the heroine. Occasionally, I've started with my bad guy. Not the hero, the anti-hero, and then, gone, from there. So, but yeah, I always do very long, detailed character sketches. And being a historical writer, a lot of what I do happens around historical events. If my guy's a soldier, he's fought in a certain battle. And so I'll research that battle, and based upon what happened in that battle, that's going to affect him.
So the construct is already
something
there.
Political happening in society, or, something like that. So for the Strongs, I wound up researching sea vessels during that time, and all of the different merchandise that ships were bringing, and the trade that was happening. And it just seems like, when you start doing the research, story ideas flow, character ideas flow, that kind of thing.
Cool. Very cool. Sophia, what about you? Have you taken from your own life or your own experiences for your books?
I do, yeah. Every book has a piece of me to a varying degree. For me, I feel like it helps me find a point of connection with a character that I haven't met before if I infuse them with something that's really deeply meaningful to me. And I also feel like when I read books that kind of touch on universal themes, it really helps me be more emotionally invested in them. Most of the time, it's something really vague, or dealing with my distant past. Occasionally, it's something that's more relevant, like the book that just released, Prince of Fire. That book, I actually had a good deal of trouble conceiving, and so the whole discussion of infertility is entirely my experience. But yeah, and then I always start with my historicals with the oh my gosh, like the chronology, like the oh my gosh, I just lost the word, but there's like the records. I go back and I look at the annals, the Irish annals, that's what they're called. And I have them all printed off surrounding the years of my story. And I base the sort of huge external plot, like to create a framework for my characters to play in off of what is going on in a higher level. And then I kind of start dropping people into all that conflict.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. And the idea of pulling on your own emotional experience too, I think there's a deeper connection to character that makes a lot of sense. Awesome. See, I knew we were going to get cool stuff. We talked about previous life stuff. So we talked a little bit about what's coming next. I would just want to take a minute to mention Maggie Anderson's book. She has a brand new book in first series. She couldn't be here with us today, but I'll pop the link to that and all the other links in the comments. And her book is The Mysterious Lord Valentine, and it's so purple. The cover of it is so purple and so mysterious-y. It's book 1 in the Improper Lady series, and it's a Dragonblade Flame book. So it's spicy. But I'll make sure I put the link to that in the comments. So, well, I'm going to say the same thing that I say every week because it's true every week. Dragonblade books are their best deal on pre-order and release. You don't even have to think about it because they're 99 cents. You can't even get bad coffee for 99 cents. And if you don't grab them on pre-order or release, you can always read them Kindle Unlimited, which is my favorite way to read now because you don't have no barrier to entry. You can, if something tickles your fancy, you can jump right in. So So, ladies, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us this week. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Thank
And I
you.
apologize about the workman.
That's okay. I'm just glad it wasn't the Borg. I was worried there for a minute. All right. Thanks so much. We'll see you back here same time next week.
Thanks. Bye, everybody.